Welcome back to the program. Taiwo Oyedele, the fiscal policy partner and African tax leader at PricewaterhouseCoopers, is joining me right now virtually. Mr. Oyedele, welcome to the program and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Nancy. It's a pleasure to be on the program.
Good morning to you. Let's get started. Let me start with this with this sentence. Is the economy stupid? I did say it earlier on. That was a statement that was coined by James Carville. That was Bill Clinton's election advisor, if I'm not mistaken. I think the 1992-1993 U.S. Elections. And why he made this statement was because we saw what was happening as at that time, what was happening in the United States. The United States needed a critical leader that would take the economy from the doldrums to the path of prosperity. And we saw what Bill Clinton did when he did come in. Is now the right time for Nigeria to perhaps, say we need the right leader to take us to the El Dorado, or if there's anything like the promised land?
Yes, I think the time was yesterday. We missed it. So the next best time is today. And today literally means even the process that has commenced now about selecting our next leaders. And why most attention will be at the presidency. This is something we need to pay attention to across all levels. Politics play an important role in the economy of any country. And therefore, you cannot have prosperity unless you have the right economic policies driven and managed by competent people at various levels of leadership within the economy. And all of that is driven by political issues, political considerations, and political actors. So I think for us, and you rightly mentioned it, we cannot afford to make a mistake. I think this country has been at a point now stretched to its limits. And it's almost like, if it gets worse than this, then we may no longer have a country. So we cannot afford that because we don't have anywhere else to call home for many of us. The vast majority of Nigerians, people say, the Japa movement, they say people are leaving the country. But the reality is, the percentage of Nigerians who are leaving are less than 1%. 99% of Nigerians can't leave even if they want to. So for their sake, if not for anything else, we need to make this country work.
Mr. Oyedele, speak to me about the feelings you've been getting, at least since this political process started happening. Everybody on a chase to get forms. I don't even want to go into all of that, but from the major political parties and even the ones that are not major. We're seeing the major political parties, APC, setting 100 million naira for presidential form. I think PDP is less than that. I think 40 million or so, if I'm not mistaken. Even other parties that are not as large as those two political parties, 25 million and all of that. Speak to me about your feelings, the reading of all of this.
I think the reading is that of disappointment because it seems almost insensitive to set those amounts at those very huge levels. And then it's even more surprising that seems to have increased the number of interests rather than discourage many of them or for them to speak up against it. So if you think about 100 million naira to buy a farm, that's not something you come by easily, even in the private sector. So the vast majority of our people will work for their entire career of 30, 35 years, and they will not be able to raise 100 million naira. Many of them claim that they were sponsored by farmers, by groups. And in the Electoral Act, there are limits to how much contribution they can get. And I just wonder, where are these youths, where are these groups who are able to easily raise 100 million in a matter of days to give to someone who, in some cases denied that they were not interested and they were willing to waste those kind of money. For me, it was disappointing. What was even more disappointing is the fact that the tax authorities also in many of the states also issue their own lists of how much the aspirants can pay to get tax clearance certificate so they can go and contest. And it was very painful for me. And the reality is that the constitution is very clear that every citizen must declare their income honestly and pay their taxes promptly to the appropriate authorities. So tax clearance certificate is supposed to cover your taxes for 3 years. So essentially you're saying, well, it's okay if you haven't paid taxes for 3 years, you've been a tax evader, but we need you to be a political leader to be elected to office. Please come, pay us some money, and we can give you the clearance to go and contest. So this is sad because in countries where they take this matter seriously, it's not only the moral ground to be able to preside over taxpayers' money, it's also the fact that it takes character, it takes decent people to declare their income honestly and pay their taxes promptly. So we missed the opportunity to use this as a basis for screening out the criminals from amongst the politicians. And unfortunately, it means that if they make it through, we shouldn't expect anything different.
What do you think should be done to our campaign finance laws? What kind of reforms should we expect around that? Because if you're taking a look at political parties, talking about millions and millions of naira, where an average Nigerian citizen lives on $1.90 a day, close to 100 million of us, or about 100 million of us, because Nigeria is still the poverty capital of the world. And in this same country, people, the elites that want to rule the remaining of us, are churning out millions of naira to contest in that process. What does this say for the reformation of campaign finance laws? And is it just even about reformation of the campaign finance laws, or really the implementation of it? And what does it also say for the electoral body, which is INEC, in terms of monitoring and evaluation of this?
So I think we should start with implementing what we do have already. So if you look at the Electoral Act, it requires the political parties to prepare financial statements. And in fact, there's a requirement for those financial statements to be published in national dailies. The Electoral Act has limits as to how much can be contributed. It has limits as to how much can be spent. But these are not being monitored effectively, unfortunately. And therefore means that people can do almost anything they like without consequences. And we may not even know because the information is not readily available. My take is that people who are paid this kind of monies and the kind of money we're hearing that they're going to be paying to delegates to vote, and not people who make money legitimately from their sweat. They're mostly money stolen from our common purse, from our treasury. So it's easy for them to throw those monies around. One of the reasons why the exchange rates in the parallel market has depreciated over the past few days, as we understand it, is because these guys are there with all manners of money, willing to buy dollars at whatever rate, so they can use it to go and get their bidding done at the different levels of nomination. So what we need to do is to first try and implement the provisions of existing laws. We also have to make sure that, in fact, what we are seeing now is a symptom of a more fundamental problem. And that fundamental problem is the ease at which people can steal our money, treasury. So we've heard over the past few days different allegations of money being stolen, and they're not small amounts of money, 80 billion, 127 billion, 47 billion here and there, in a country where there is so much poverty. So we have to get to a point where we have controls in place that make it difficult for you to steal and make it a lot easier for us to detect and punish when we do find those people who have stolen. And we should not be pardoning people who have been convicted of corruption. It just sends the wrong signal, which means we can keep doing what we're doing and then nothing changes. So if we have a process to prevent corruption and people make their money legitimately, then maybe we'll see less of this. And I do think that even for the delegates, they should be made to sign an undertaking that they will not collect bribes, and they should also sign declarations that can be used against them subsequently by way of investigation, such that if we find out that you collected money, then you have to face the consequences, because the destiny of the country is now resting on these few people that are representing us. And sometimes they tend to represent their pockets rather than the Nigerian people.
Taiwo, it seems that the destiny of 206 million people lie in the hands of the few who are delegates now. And it's good that you brought that up. These delegates, of course, the allegations, we've heard it several times. Some of those delegates are waiting to be bribed in US dollars for them to be able to choose who they want to choose, not even choosing the candidates with the right skills or competencies or credibility. So what kind of appeal should we be doing now to the delegates across the political parties? Delegates, we're in your hands. Don't sell us, don't sell the remaining of us for highest $10,000 or whatever it is. If you convert $10,000 now with the official rate, I think that's about what I just said, 4.19 million naira. Highest black market rate, 6 million or whatever. So please don't sell us. Please appeal to the delegates, Mr. Oyedele.
Yeah, we can appeal, but I don't think whether an appeal will do it, because many of these people don't care about appeals. It's not like they live in Mars or Jupiter. They live in this country. They see what we are going through, and they see, even if they are insulated, they can see their family members, they can see their friends, they can see the community where they live. I don't think they need appeals. What they do need is for us to set processes and control in place and let them know that there will be consequences if they take money from any criminals to vote in a way that compromises the interest of the country. It has to be that what they're doing is for greater good. And I think in this case, INEC itself, as well as EFCC and the other organizations, including the civil society and the public at large, particularly the media, need to keep saying this. Let them know that there will be consequences. If someone is able to give those kind of ridiculous amount of money to each delegate, most likely they are not the people who mean well for the country. Why would you, if you want to serve your country, why would you have to go to that extent? It's just almost like a business. You pay these amounts, and of course, when you get there, you want to recoup it back with a lot of returns and interest on the amount you've spent. So they have to remember that it is not only about today, it's also about tomorrow, it's about the future that is unborn. And history will write it against them if they are the reason why we get to a point where we don't have the right candidates to vote for. Unfortunately, we are not at a point where we can say, let's rely on the general population to make the decision for us, regardless of what the political parties do, right? Because too many Nigerians are just too hungry, they cannot be rational. So which means at the end of the day, we're still down to the candidates that emerge from the major political parties. So at that point of shortlisting, once they give us the bad candidate, it doesn't matter what you say to Nigerians. It doesn't matter whether we have PVC. It doesn't matter whether we all go out. We already have the wrong candidate. This is why this level at this stage is so important. And those delegates have to remember that posterity will judge them, no matter how, if they vote for their own vested interest and their pockets, rather than for the interest of the Nigerian people. If Nigeria start working well and there's prosperity, no matter how much they're going to be paid, they will see more than that in terms of wealth. They will see more than that in terms of prosperity. And Nigeria will be a peaceful country where even the money they have, no matter how little, they can spend it in peace. Now, even if you have a lot of money, you don't feel safe. So what's the essence of the money you have that you're afraid, to go out? Many of them can't even travel on the road. Many of them can't go to meetings. What kind of life is that? So that has to be their priority and primary consideration over and above any monetary reward that they may be promised or given by anyone.
Taiwo, if we take a look at the area of presidential, let's stick with presidential a bit. The area of presidential aspirants are those that have, showed or revealed their intentions to lead the country. how inspired or how encouraged are you with the kind of statements that these people have made? Um, from my last count, I know there are over 50 aspirants across the political parties. But for me as a person, I haven't been hearing what I need to hear. What I've been hearing are just cheap sound bites. Oh, there's unemployment in Nigeria. If I come in, I would take it away. This security. We've been there, we've done that with this president. That is there now. And nothing seems to have changed. For me, I want beyond sound bites. If you are going to overturn unemployment, how are you going to do it? Do you even know how many people are unemployed? What is your policy on it? I want to see the policy document on the different economic challenges. And I'm not seeing this kind of debates. The political parties are unfortunately not encouraging this kind of debate. That's my own reading of this. I don't know if yours is different.
No, it's not different, Nancy. I think I haven't been inspired. The majority of the issues are not being discussed. Where they're being discussed, they're not being discussed in a manner that can give you confidence that they do understand the issues and they can do something about them. Unfortunately, they also take advantage of the fact that the vast majority of our population are also not very well, versed in this matter, so they don't ask the right questions. So the bulk of the conversation, especially by the leading political parties, have been about the zone, about where the person is going to come from. And for those who have managed to move away from that, it's been, the usual rhetoric: I'll create jobs, I'll create employment, I'll build roads, I'll build bridges, I've built it before. Not really addressing the fundamental issues around how can you be a leader of people? How can you be a manager of resources? How can you bring people together in a way that can help us, have this one nation and promote peace and prosperity? For a few, where they have also been speaking, you haven't seen that level of sincerity because they're trying to say what people want to hear. But I think we're at a point now, even though I know it's politics, where you need people to agree with you, but it's a point where we need to be honest. I think Nigerians are looking for honesty now. They're looking for sincerity because we've been let down too many times. So we're now looking for people who will come forth and say to us, this is what it is, and this is how I want to do it, and this is what I've done before as a means of credibility. When Nigerian politicians, throw their experiences in front of us, I just wonder whether those are the experiences we want. So if you've been in government and we don't have anything to show for it, how is that a good experience? Unless you're saying to us you've learned how not to run government and you do it differently when you get the opportunity. So the conversations, I think, as individual citizens of the country, media, the organized private sector, the civil society, we need to start pushing the conversation, away from all those rhetorics to real issues. How would you address insecurity? What would you do differently to reform the Nigerian police? How would you ensure that we focus more on intelligence for the military? How would you fight insecurity? How would you create employment? We have a lot of MSMEs, but there's a lot of impediments to doing business. How would you take those impediments away? How would you address the bottlenecks at the port? How would you address the issues around logistics? How would we make sure there's power? So we have electricity to run and power the economy. And it goes on. What do you do to education? So the Education Task Trust Fund over the past 10 years alone, I was just looking at it, was over 2 trillion naira. Yet we still have issues with the educational sector. In fact, we haven't made progress from where we were when the tax was introduced. So maybe the problem is not only money. What can we do differently? Why don't we have many of the universities building capacity even for the private sector by way of business school, executive courses, and you can use that to raise funds? Why do we think everybody needs education that is almost free, when what we need to do is to restructure it in a way that those who have money to pay will be made to pay, and those who don't have the money to pay would either be subsidized, given scholarship, or given student loans. So there's these fundamental issues. We need to start thinking about them and putting them in the forefront so that you can start getting an idea of who might be able to do it in terms of competence, because I think that now is more important than anything else.
Now, if you're talking of competence, do you think that Nigeria needs really like an economist to be the next president, really? Should an economist or someone that has a background in finance and related field, should that person be Nigeria's next leader because of the enormity of what we face as a country?
No, I don't think so. I have no issues with an economist being Nigeria as the next president. I have no issues with an accountant, with a lawyer, with even a trader, right? I think what we need is a leader of people, right? By the way, nobody would ever be able to have all the skills that is needed to be able to run a country such as Nigeria that is so diverse and is so huge, right? If you are great with the economy, maybe you're going to struggle with, the law, following due process. Does it mean that you're going to struggle with just being accountable to the people? Because you're not going to be an accountant, a lawyer, an economist, a doctor to be able to take care of the healthcare. No, you don't need to. You need a leader who understand that you need to inspire people. You need to bring them together. You need to understand emotional intelligence, that even your actions and what you say and what you don't say matter a lot. You need to influence people in terms of value system. You need to be able to, motivate people to give their best, channel their energy in the right places, make sure that all the head of agencies, all the ministerial positions, all our ambassadors, everyone representing Nigeria playing an important role are the most competent people that are held to account. And today we can use technology to control a lot of that. People still process passports today, international passport, and it's taking months. Simple things just become so complicated in Nigeria, and it's completely unbelievable, even paying taxes. Once you have the right people in the right places, led by a leader who believes that their job is to lead, their job is to inspire, their job is to manage resources, and their job, most importantly, is to be accountable to the Nigerian people. It doesn't matter whether the person is an economist, whether they are a mathematician or a lawyer, who will see progress. And I'm sure we've seen this around the world. The leaders who have really made significant impact are not necessarily economists, and they have done well, because there are lots of people who will take care of the economy if you just allow them the opportunity.
Now, this final round, I guess it should be like 2 questions. I would want you to enumerate the economic challenges that the next administration would face, because it's not child's play. I've said it here on the program many times. Then the B part of it is the area of presidential aspirants and governorship aspirants that we're seeing. Are we seeing that kind of, are we going to see that kind of competence to address those problems from this crop of people, the competence and the credibility? If you take a look at, many governors are coming out now that they want to be Nigeria's president. When I had to look at these governors that have come out, that have said, I want to run Nigeria, I'm seeing poverty levels high in their states. They are little states, they've not been able to fix it. Unemployment, they've not been able to fix it. There's a certain governor that wants to run for president. This year, no single child came out from WAEC, that is WASSCE, the WACS. No single child came out from that man's state for WAEC, from the public school. And you want to be president. So these are the kind of things that Nigerians should also be looking at critically and asking the questions. So what are the economic challenges that the next leader or the next administration would inherit, so that they understand these things? Then number 2, with the area of these aspirants, are you seeing the competence across sectors vis-a-vis the antecedents of many of these people that have shown their faces that they want to run?
Yeah, so I think in terms of what the next president, and governors in different states would inherit is a fragile economy. We can blame this on COVID, we can blame it on Russia, we can blame it on everyone, but the reality is that the economy is fragile. So the next government is going to inherit an economy that is fragile, and therefore their first priority will be to stabilize the economy. So if you think about critical issues like the exchange rate, so the exchange rate, it's currently a major hurdle and headache for businesses. Even when you're doing your legitimate business, you can't find the FX to import equipment, to import materials and inputs. Um, sometimes, what I've heard from many of my clients is you bid for a certain amount and you'll be lucky to get 5 or 10% of it. And then you go to the black market to go and sort the balance. And it's sad that that same black market is the black market that drug dealers are going to buy dollars when they sell drugs. It's the same market that politicians are going to with corrupt and stolen money to buy dollars to go and pay bribes. And so you are also going there to compete to do business. It's practically impossible. So the first, priority will be to stabilize the economy, and a lot of that will require policies will have to be introduced or modified to ensure that they even also give confidence, so that when you have the confidence in the economy, investment will start coming in. And then once you have investment, you can then have increase in employment and every other thing that we want to follow. There can be no development without investment. The second issue, maybe even more important than the first one, is around security. So, and we need to start having conversations that are not talking about military and then getting equipment to bomb everywhere. Those looks like very, like stuff you see in movies. So these are issues to do with intelligence, right? How is it that our people, citizens of Nigerians, many of them feel more comfortable giving information to terrorists and bandits than to giving it to our security personnel? And even when they share the information, how come it's not coordinated in a manner that we can quickly stop some of those evils before they happen? So many countries around the world, including even in Africa, you commit a crime, within 15 to 20 minutes, they find you out because the system is so robust. And we need to do that by connecting the dots, using intelligence. And then once you stabilize the economy and you bring peace back, then everything else falls in place. Then in terms of are we seeing the competence, the experience from the candidates? I'll say maybe a few. Of course, I can't mention names, a few, but the vast majority of the candidates don't even seem to understand or appreciate the enormity of the issues that we face. What they seem to flout, or flaunt in front of Nigerian people is just evidence of failure. That they are painting as successes for us to look at. If you have the opportunity to manage a state and you haven't shown leadership in terms of accountability, you haven't shown leadership in terms of prudence, you haven't shown leadership in terms of the priority of the projects you have financed, you haven't shown leadership in terms of considering the impact of what you do and what you fail to do on the people. You haven't shown leadership in terms of trying to grow the size of your economy, no reforms in terms of policies. Then I'm afraid that's not the kind of leader we want, because it's all the same old ways of doing things that we cannot afford to continue with. We need a new thinking. We need leaders who want to do the right thing, whether it's popular or not. So some taxes, have been introduced recently, including the one to fund healthcare on telecommunication and GSM costs.
All right, Mr. Oyedele, if you can hear me, I'm afraid we've come to the end of the show today.
We need to do things.
Mr. Oyedele, if you can hear me, we've come to the end of the show today. We will continue. Thank you very much. Thank you, because I'm still hearing your voice in my ear. Thank you very much, Mr. Oyedele. We've come to the end of the show today. We'll continue to monitor what's happening around these political parties, but thank you for joining us. I've been speaking with Taiwo Oyedele, who is the Fiscal Policy Partner and Africa Tax Leader at PricewaterhouseCoopers. We've been looking at 2023 elections, why we need to choose the right leaders for 2023. I am Nancy Naji. Be the best you can be and be the change that you want to see. I'll see you all again tomorrow, God willing. Bye now.